Yeah, I like to say the PS1 version, they gave the game a fresh coat of paint. This one, they kind of reimagined it, and so a bunch of different things happened in it. Most notably, this equipment glitch, and what are they doing with this hammer?
They're doing evil, evil things to this hammer right here. Things that were never intended for this hammer. So what they're actually doing is they're going immediately to the shop, purchasing a hammer from the weapon shop here in Cornelia, and then they're going into their configuration menu and turning on the memory cursor. And this basically allows them to facilitate a glitch where they can take a weapon or a piece of armor and attempt to scroll over to an adjacent character in the equipment menu at the same time that they try to open the list of equipment on one of their character's slots, and doing so essentially opens the list of armors for the slot on the character that they're trying to go to, even if that's makes no sense to you. So if they go from a weapon slot on the warrior to an armor slot on one of the characters next to the warrior, they can basically just turn the hammer in to a piece of armor called the Knight's Armor, which you would normally buy later in the game in Melmond. And then, since the game is confused by the item IDs that are being matched and used it, and doesn't realize we don't have it in our inventory, it pulls it out of thin air and gives it to the players. So they're essentially turning the hammer into this Knight's Armor, putting one copy on each of their characters to greatly increase their defense so that most of these random encounters in the early going are trivial. And then additionally, they're glitching one additional copy of the Knight's Armor and then selling it for money to get supplies.
Yeah, we're just going to see a little bit of updating here as the broadcast gets in sync. The armor is just so good that everything that hits is only going to be doing 1 damage in the early game. And then they also are going to get a weapon here, because index values are a fun thing in programming.
So yeah, they're additionally dodging into this bottom left room here in the cash shrine as soon as they get in here to pick up a leather cap. And they're performing a very similar glitch here to turn that into a weapon called the Judgment Staff. So this piece of armor essentially allows them to, they can equip it on their characters and smack it, and has more attack power than any of the weapons that our characters start the game with. But additionally, it can also be used as an item in combat to cast Flare, which is the level 8 black magic spell. So within 2 minutes, they have access to pretty much a great way to wipe large enemy groups very quickly.
Yeah, unfortunately for the early game, things are so easy that just whacking him over the head actually even ends up being faster.
So it looks like we got Double here with a quick lead in his match against Sawney. He had a very good start here. And then looks like Yoshi has a slight lead over TenShi here. I wouldn't pay too much attention to the leads right now, though, as over the course of the hour and a half that this run is expected to take, you're likely to see the leads change quite a bit.
All kinds of things happen. We'll see in a little bit if anybody's in a gambling mood today, but one of the quick changes to note is the PSP version will not let you forget the loot here, but it's significantly faster to go up and talk to the princess than it is to get the extra cutscene of trying to walk out and she hands it to you. But either way, you don't get to the Chaos Shrine and be like, oh, wait, I needed something.
So meanwhile, Double here is stuck watching a little cutscene. These are some quick cutscenes that were added that just flesh out some of the events that are happening. So in this case, we see the bridge being rebuilt here just outside of Cornelia as a reward for defeating Garland and rescuing the Princess Sarah. Sawney has just talked to her. You got Yoshi and TenShi talking with the king right now to get that rebuilt. So as soon as they reach the exit of Cornelia Castle, this little cutscene triggers that you're seeing on Double's end.
Gotta admire a construction crew who can take care of business that quick. That enables us to get to the next town in the game, which is Provoca, and that'll be due east.
So Double makes his way to the bridge here. Another cutscene plays here, much like the original game when you reach this bridge here. But thankfully, we can actually skip a portion of this cutscene. If we stand there, then a lengthy dialogue plays out. But we can just skip it after a certain point of that cutscene and move on. One of the many quality of life changes that is present in this version. So here we got Double making his way over to Provoca here, but he's getting into a random encounter here with a wolf, and he's opting to kill that wolf since there's only one of them. In most cases, you're going to see these guys just run away from all the enemies they run into, so they don't really need the experience, and in general, our characters are good enough at running away from them. You might say they have a little trouble with some wolves sometimes, though, as the wolves have a higher agility, and that tends to make them take their turns a little bit earlier in the turn order and make them a little bit more difficult to run from. But otherwise, they're going to be just trying to get away from these.
Welcome off to the race. Yes, there are 2 races going on here. On the top side, it's Dubldrop versus Sawneyrath. On the lower end, it's Ten versus Yoshi.
Yeah, our bottom 2 racers are facing each other, and the top 2 racers are facing each other head-to-head. And this is a best-of-3 series. I just realized we don't have the best-of-3 markers here on the layout, but this is game 1 for both series here.
Dubldrop and TenShi both coming in here 8-0. Sawneyrath with a 6-2, Yoshi with a 5-3 coming into this race.
Yeah, this is their... Well, they each survived their first bracket round against their other opponents. So, yeah, we're now in the bracket phase here, so these are best-of-3 matches between these runners. And this is the quarterfinals going on, essentially.
This is one of those early places where we can see a little bit of route divergence between the runners. There are some who like to go for the pirates first, others like to do the shopping first, because then there's no NPCs standing in the way.
Yeah,
but the he can get you a little bit.
Yeah, I think I was the first one who started doing that just because I kind of realized that if we kept doing the pirates first, then once you defeat them, certain NPCs spawn in the town, and they can spawn in some of these alleyways which lead to the shops, which makes you go take a detour around them. So I actually started to just start shopping beforehand, before they can appear in the town. And I think it's kind of made its way down to everybody else. So Double is purchasing some supplies here, notably potions, ethers, antidotes, and phoenix downs that will get him down here. So if you're wondering where those came from, because many of those weren't in the original version of the game, then they've been added as a quality of life bonus here in this version of the game. But you're probably wondering like how they're using ethers when there's a spell shard system in Final Fantasy 1, but that's another of the changes that's in this version of the game, is there's no spell charge system. They replaced it with an MP system, like many of the later games in this series. So the spells still have levels, and they still have class and, level requirements to be able to use them, but instead of having charges, there's MP.
Which has the added benefit of you're able to use the new magic points as you get them in levels. You just have to heal up, which is something lacking in the original, so a lot of quality to that change.
Yeah, additionally, there's also Phoenix Downs, which weren't in the original game, so they have a way to recover quickly from, things that go bad. If your characters die, or if they get poisoned or something, they have ways to recover from that without having to go back to town. And additionally, there's also things like tents in this version of the game, just like the original game, but we don't really need them since we have the other supplies.
Now, the game gradually introduces status effects. We just saw a couple of them on display. Stun was attempted by the Odd Eye on the seas, but that missed. And then TenShi had to heal up some poison, as, of course, our next up is Poison Cave Incarnate, that being the Marsh Cave. But they get you used to these status effects before they start hitting you with the big ones later on.
And as EpiBeth said in the chat, you can save anywhere. That's a very handy feature in this one, and allows him to be super risky in certain areas. Saving takes a few seconds in this version of the game, a little bit longer than it does in the GBA version, since it was originally on a UMD disc as opposed to a cartridge like the GBA version. These guys are not playing on the UMD version. Most of them, I believe, are playing on emulator, and if they are playing, there's still some of those like me who play on console. And many of us are playing it on a soft-modded console using an ISO on a memory stick. If we were to play on the UMD disc, you would notice significant load times every time they entered or exit a dungeon, and a delay on the in-game audio, which is all it does is just add a lot of time. So by playing it on an ISO, it makes it a lot quicker.
Come down to Marsh Cave. Swanee's going to be the first one in. He's just looking for one particular treasure. That, of course, is the crown that is guarded by... Well, we'll see it when we get there.
Double getting salty here early on, right here.
Is it Final Fantasy 1 if you don't get salty at some point?
Oh, I'm salty as hell right now over that last race. That's okay, though. Yeah. It takes a special kind of person to be able to handle running this, because emotionally it can be very upsetting when you... because the races can be very, very random. There's a huge random element in these races that is probably not very apparent or understood unless you're a runner of the game.
So throughout the course of this run, there will be a lot of running away from the encounters. These Pisca demons that we're seeing on the trap tile here are our first experience with one we cannot run away from. There's drawbacks to that in that you have to actually deal with them. There is, however, some advantages to it in that they can never ambush you.
We had someone... I apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly, but Habkianame or whatever it is, said he was hoping to ask me some questions during this run, so we'll see what's going on. If he's got any questions for me in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any about that. In the meantime, Double's picked up the crown. Sawney has a slight lead on him. It looks like TenShi has a slight lead getting out of the marsh cave at the moment. What's up, Mutt? Welcome in.
This is right now very easily in the realm of a couple random encounters can swing it for you, or one really nasty bat in the Earth Cave. You know, that also happens.
Yeah, there's no way to manipulate the encounters in this version, so they essentially have to take whatever they get. Their only other option is to basically save and reset. And I'm really admiring Sawney's character names right now. This paralysis.
The stun touch is one of the nastiest things you can encounter. It was really... The touch effects were really broken in the NES, so it's one of the things you can really appreciate they changed, but they can just keep you stun-locked here.
So Sawney has the option to use the Judgment Staff if he'd like to try to take them out. There's no guarantee that his character would get his turn off before that goes off. Luckily for him, it did go off on this one.
Yeah, tried for a couple rounds to run away and it didn't work, so at some point you just have to cut the losses, use the spell, and get out of there.
Yeah, in general, they want the encounters to be one round at max, and they want to be trying to run away as quickly as possible here. We see TenShi is the first one to reach the Western Keep and take on Astos here, but unfortunately his Black Mage died, and that could be really, really bad for the particular route he's trying to use, where Astos gives a ton of experience in the early going here.
Yeah, they made Astos a little ridiculously good on the experience, especially as far as the early game encounters go, but he makes you pay for it.
So TenShi's able to take down Astos here. I mean, their general strategy is to use the Judgment Staff as a melee attack, with melee attacks on their melee characters, and use it as an item in combat to cast Flare with their mages. And they have to do 420 damage to take out Astos. If Astos does not kill anyone, then it should end in one round. But if Astos does kill someone, like he did on TenShi's Black Mage, that can slow things down. Especially the Black Mage is especially painful to die in this fight, as TenShi is probably using a newer route where the Black Mage is the focus of learning magic spells to deal with larger enemy groups that are harder to run from. So missing out on that experience will probably set him back a little bit.
Sawney kind of had the dream there. If the death is going to work on anyone, you want it to be the knight.
Yeah, you don't really... The only character you really don't want it on in this specific route is the Black Mage, if any character is going to die to the death spell that he casts. And nobody's attempted the puzzle yet. They may be holding on to it later. They can play a minigame puzzle anytime they're on the boat, but they have to stand still and essentially hold the X button and then press circle, I think, 23 times in succession to be able to turn it on. And they can play the game if they want to for a 1 in 6 chance to earn an emergency exit item, which is the same as the White Mage spell exit. And but they have to finish in second place to do that. And the default first place time is 30 seconds. The default second place time is in 1 minute. So they have to finish between 30 seconds and 1 minute in order to have that 1 in 6 chance.
As far as timing of that goes, they want it for Earth Cave, so they can go for it anytime now, but you can wait all the way till you're about to enter Melmond before actually doing it.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest time save in terms of where they could be using it. And it saves them like 3/4 of backtracking in an area that is known for extremely trolly encounters. So here we see Yoshi buying the spells here in Melman. He looks like he's the first one to get back to the town. And he got enough experience from the fights to this point to be able to get the spells on his Black Mage. So now he's got Fyra and Thundar to deal with, has additional options to deal with enemy groups that are troublesome or otherwise unrunnable.
Thunder's a very useful element. Obviously, with the sea creatures, there's a lot that's vulnerable to it. There's several of the unrunnables vulnerable to it. And there's a lot that just doesn't resist it. But as far as not resisting it, we've got Judgment Staffs. It's just that it's faster to use the spellcasts when they will do the job.
So here we got Double getting his spells as well. And additionally, they're also buying some gold needles here in the town while they're here. This is a safety item in case their characters get petrified later on in the game. This gives them an option to recover from that.
You only get a couple chances at buying those, so it's good to get them in early.
Yeah, we don't need them until, at the earliest, the Earth Cave, and technically you don't even need them at all in this run, but it's extremely ill-advised to go without them in a race setting, because if critical characters are petrified, you don't really have a way to recover it if you don't have needles, and that can basically end your run at any time.
Storyline, we have Matoya, who was missing her crystal eye because Asta stole it for reasons, but we give it back to her and she gives us a Jolt tonic, so we can move on to the land party now. I hear the Elf Castle has great Wi-Fi.
I can confirm that. I think it's mostly unlike some of the other rooms I don't usually visit, though. I think the reception's better there.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so we see Yoshi and Sawny talking to Matoya here, and then getting out of here. TenShi's on his way back from the Matoya Cave. Double's about to get into the Matoya Cave here, so... In terms of the overall stream, we've got TenShi in the lead, Yoshi just behind him, Sawny in third, Double in fourth. But as a reminder, it's just it's two head-to-head matches between TenShi and Yoshi, and there's a separate match here going on between Double and Sawny. They're just going on at the same time.
Yep, runners agree on the times that they're going to race, so this one just happened to line up for all four of them, so here we are. These runners right now, I believe it's Dubldrop who has the best PB at 125.14. Swanny's just behind that, 126.05. 5th and 7th on the overall leaderboard currently. And with the Mystic Key, we start having access to a lot more things.
Okay, so they both made their way back down here to the Elven Castle here. And not only that they've done this to be able to take the Jolt tonic they got from Matoya and give it to the Elf Prince to wake him up, and he rewards us with the Mystic Key, as Triton just said. And then the Mystic Key is used to unlock a bunch of treasure rooms in some of the areas, and also just unlock some areas in dungeons. But notably, once we have it here, we can reach this treasure room in the back of the Elven Castle here, and we're going to be picking up two of the items in the chests here. They were going to be picking up the Mithril Hammer and the Bronze Gloves from the first and the last chest, respectively. And they'll be turning the Mithril Hammer into a piece of equipment called the Thief's Armlet. And they'll be putting 3 copies on each of their characters to raise their agility by 5 points per copy of the armlet on their characters. So this is an item that was added as bonus content for the GBA version. And the PSP version contains all the content in the GBA version, as well as 1 additional bonus dungeon and some extra equipment that was added, as well as rewards for defeating the PSP's exclusive super boss. And notably, we're going to be glitching many of these without going anywhere near the bonus dungeon and powering through this.
So we have 3 of our 4 done looting the treasury. Dubldrop has been getting a lot of encounters, so he's running a little bit behind that right now. We've gone on up to Caster Cornelia, which is where the nitro powder awaits, and that's going to be our next progression item.
So yeah, once again, this is TenShi reaches the nitro powder here in the back room here. Again, this is a locked room that we need the mystic key for, so we can't go here any earlier than what we have now.
Mystic Key is such a fascinating item to this game. Not only does it unlock as many things as it does, but it was one of the kind of fallback sanity checks they put into the game. So back in all the way in the NES days, they knew people would break the sequence of games. So as a preventative measure, they locked doors in the Chaos Shrine, for what this game calls it, and you can't progress unless you have the Mystic Key.
So anyways, there isn't really much in the way of sequence breaking in this particular category here. You're just going to see them go really, really fast. The only thing they're really skipping is how much they need to grind and fight enemies. A lot of the equipment they pick up will essentially substitute for the levels they would have gained for leveling up, so they don't need to level up anywhere near as much as they would normally do. We'll see a short grinding session later on in the ice cave. That will last about 1.5 to 2 minutes tops. And other than that, you're really not going to see these guys run away. So I was in the middle of explaining about the Mithril Hammer turning into a Thief's Armlet, and I forgot to mention that they also picked up the Bronze Gloves, which turns into an item called the Sage's Staff. This is another item they can use, which grants 15 points of intelligence on the characters they put it on, and they put it specifically on their Thief and the White Mage to start with. Intelligence does actually factor into how much damage your characters do with spells or combat use items, and it also does factor into run chances for the characters, although agility is generally better for those for trying to run away from enemies, because it also increases your chance to go earlier in the turn order. So they're using that specifically to try to be able to set up their party to use Thundara with the Black Mage if they happen to run into any more Pisco Demons in the Earth Cave. Or they can even use Fyra if they run into any groups of undead that are otherwise problematic to run into or won't let them run away.
So this nitro powder is used to blow up part of the world. It gives us a canal we can sail the ship through and advance to the next town, which is going to be Melmond.
As I mentioned, there's no real sequence breaking here, but they are basically locked in the early going to do this fetch quest, where they have to essentially get the nitro powder to be able to open up access to the rest of the world, and then they can reach Lich at that point, the first of the 4 elemental fiends they have to defeat in order to reach the final dungeon. They can technically do the fiends in any order, but they can only access the later dungeons once they've picked up a canoe or an airship, and they essentially have to defeat Lich first in order to be able to get access to those. So Lich is going to be the first one that we see of those 4. They can do any of the other ones in any order, but the generally agreed upon order is more or less the same intended progress order. So you'll be seeing them do that, and then Marilith, and then Kraken, and then Tiamat in that sequence, most likely. Oh, here we go, a puzzle.
Swaney's going to go for it. So 1 in 6 chance, I believe it is.
Yeah, he's got there's 1 of 6 items that could drop here as a result of finishing in 2nd place, so he needs to finish this puzzle by rearranging these tiles in numerical order. He needs to finish between 30 seconds and 60 seconds, so he wants to get it as close to 30 seconds as possible, and make sure he doesn't shortchange it either.
Was a little off on his numbers there, but he worked it out all right, got it with 0.8 seconds, and did not get the exit.
So no, he won a remedy instead, which is not particularly useful in this run. So that's one of the 6. That's 5. That's one of the 5 items that we need that doesn't really help us here. The other item he was trying to get was an emergency exit, so he could skip the backtracking in Earth Cave. So unfortunately for him, that's essentially 35 seconds wasted for no real gain here. But it's a high-risk, high-reward strategy that you might see some people going. Double looks like he has opted not to do the puzzle unless I missed something earlier. It is an optional strategy, and it's not technically advised for newer racers here, as it just, well, more often than not, you won't gain anything out of it. But you can save. It costs you 30 seconds to get it, and can save you anywhere from like 1.5 to 2 minutes of backtracking in the Earth Cave, depending on how poor the RNG was.
Yoshi had one of the encounters you had to worry about, chance of a stun lock, but he got through it.
So I'll mention here, Double was the last one into Melmond here, and once it ventured into Melmond, we went into the weapon shop the armor shop, and picked up a steel gloves, and turned that into the single most important weapon we're going to be getting for our characters over the course of the remainder of the run, called the Barbarian Sword. This is an item that wasn't in any of the other versions of the game because it was added as a bonus for defeating the toughest version of the PSP exclusive Super Boss here. It has 125 attack power and a 15-point strength bonus, and we can essentially just buy the steel gloves and use the equipment glitch to obtain free copies of it for our characters. So Double has put 2 copies of that, one on his warrior, one on his thief. And
TenShi has the unrunnable Pisca Demons encounter. They are a random encounter that can show up here in Earth Cave, and you're going to have to deal with them when you run into them.
So TenShi's here on the 3rd floor. He's almost reached the vampire here. Yoshi's also on the 3rd floor. Looks like he's on about halfway through. Sawney's about to enter the 3rd floor. Double's on the 2nd floor. He's 1 floor back of Sawney right now. So here comes Yoshi getting a group of Pisca Demons here. So we set up our characters with the Sage's Staff, specifically on our Black Mage, so that we could use Thundara against them and take them out in one go. That gives us enough intelligence with 15 points from the Sage's Staff to be able to do that. And specifically we choose Thundara because the Pisca Demons resist fire and ice spells.
But Dubldrop has one of the encounters you really have to worry about here. So he's hoping to dodge the status attacks either by killing these or running away.
So yeah, we see Cockatrices here. This is the 3rd floor is where things can start to get very dangerous in the Cavern of Earth.
They're a very low HP enemy. You'd almost take them for granted, except for the fact they can just turn your whole party to stone, which is a complete wipe.
Double here getting a preemptive against wolves here. That's a very fortuitous thing here, because there was a lot of wolves there, but if they get a preemptive attack, then their first attempt to run with any of their characters will be successful, and the opposite of that is ambushes. If they see that, each enemy will get 1 free attack against their characters before they can act. They want to see that as little as possible, but it's completely out of their control. But here we see on Yoshi's the power of the Barbarian Sword here. So now that they have this Barbarian Sword, they can essentially one-shot Vampire with no real issues.
That's the Vampire. What else is new? He's only scary in groups.
So Double taking a slight lead over Sawney now. Looks like Sawney got slowed down a little bit.
Our progression item here was that Star Ruby. It's going to be able to let us advance in the game as the bats in Earth Cave are being the bats in Earth Cave. They just love to get in your way.
So since nobody got an emergency exit here, everybody has to walk back out the way they came in here. So they have to essentially backtrack the entirety of the dungeon. They can't do Earth Cave in one go because of the way that the dungeon has been designed. If they reach the end of the 3rd floor, there is essentially a slab blocking their progress, and they need the Earth Rod to remove that. They can't get the Earth Rod because they can't reach the Giant's Cave without the Star Ruby, so they essentially have to go into Earth Cave, defeat the Vampire, pick up the Star Ruby, and then go back out, feed it to the Giant. The Giant will open up his path, and that will let us get to the Earth Rod so that we can get to the bottom of it. So we have to make 2 trips into the Earth Cave to get through it. TenShi is walking the wrong way and caught himself. He was starting to walk back towards his boat instead of heading towards the Giant's Cave like he meant to.
You gotta get that other step in the process. We gotta take care of Lich before we can move on.
It's common for anybody to have like a stupid brain fart like that in the middle of a run. It's pretty much inevitable that people are going to just do that over time. And it's a great way to make a mistake and learn.
Yeah, I've seen people make their splits specific names to remind them of things in order to try and prevent that. Just ingrain it in yourself that go to Giant's Cave or something like that. You put a split there specifically for it, and then it's right there on your timer whenever you're running. But hey, you run any game long enough, you're gonna do things and be like, why did I do that?
Okay, Double got poison there, so he's got antidotes to deal with any puzzle, but he healed his warrior and stuff. I don't think he wanted to do that. So, part of the setup of the early portion of the game is to essentially, they want to stop healing their melee characters after a certain point, so that their characters will be between about 20 and 70 HP by the time they reach the Evil Eye in Earth Cave. And we do this because we want to kill them off during that section to facilitate experience grind for the other characters, the White Mage and the Black Mage. But Double actually looks like he healed up his Warrior and Thief here. Typically doesn't, you don't do that in this category, as that makes it much more difficult to set up the party for the experience grind later on. But there is a backup strategy Double can use here to fix that. He probably won't be able to utilize it until he gets to the Ice Cave, though.
That is also Earth Cave. He's very likely to get poisoned again.
Poison could work to his advantage in a specific scenario here. If his warrior has over 200 health, and if his warrior gets poisoned, that can essentially put him in great shape for Lich, because he has enough HP to be able to tank a Blizzara on his warrior. And if the Lich doesn't use it, then the poison will essentially kill off the HP instead. But that's, we'll see what happens. Typically, we don't want to set up quite this early unless you're already poisoned. So everybody's got the Earth Rod, it looks like, except for Double. Double is trying to get through the Giant's Cave. He's once again finds himself behind Sawney at the moment, as apparently Sawney had a better track out from the Vampire to this point.
Double fell behind with those early encounters, and it's kind of stuck the whole way since. Sawney did go for the emergency exit, and I think he did that in part because of the gap he knew he had, so he had that time kind of in the bank, and then if you get the exit, it's that much more. Or, Sawney just maybe going for it for good measure, because he's done that in other rounds of this tournament.
Sawney's a newer runner to the tournament this year. Hasn't previously run any of the tournaments. This is the 4th tournament, which is why it's called Total Cast 4. We haven't held it in a year and a half because we've typically held it in previous years starting in January. This year we opted to start it in July. But I believe all but the very first one have been here on the Speed Gaming channels. And Speed Gaming has grown significantly since we were first helping us with these tournaments.
TenShi going with the early safety save on this 3rd floor. We talked about it earlier. This is kind of the floor of danger. Obviously, there's no boss on this floor, but it's just kind of that extra safety step.
To answer the question in chat, Blazing Zard asks if this is the PSP version. Yes, this is the PSP version. So you may notice it's probably the best looking version and has the most content and features of any of the individual releases of FF1, and is probably one of the easiest ones to play, and specifically it's one of the fastest to speedrun because of an equipment glitch that we previously described here. That's only present in this version of the game. And no, it is not randomized. The only randomness in this game is what encounters you get, what enemies are in those encounters, and whether or not you're able to run away from them or not. Which is all part of the game.
And there's enemy script RNG, because there's never enough RNG in video games.
Yeah, and additionally, what attacks enemies use against you, what turn everybody goes in, how much HP people get when they level up. So there's a lot of different factors that can contribute to this, to the randomness, but there's no way for them to really mitigate it. They just kind of have to deal with everything that they get as it happens. So
but ultimately, this is the vanilla game PSP version.
Yes, there does exist a randomizer for this version, but it is still in early development here. And it's nowhere near as full-featured as the NES one that many people may be more familiar with. So here we go. Everybody, right now it looks like we have TenShi's on the final floor here of Cavern of Earth, so once they have the Earth Rod, they can reach the final 2 floors here and confront Lich. You're most likely going to see everyone take a save here. Oh, Double is going for the poison strategy I did mention earlier. We'll talk about that in a second. But everyone is essentially taking a save here before Lich, because Lich has a potential ability to use Blizzara on his opening attack. And if he does, in most cases, that tends to do more damage than our characters have maximum health. So that can easily be a wipe.
You have to respect Lich's spellcasting in this version of the game, and the ideal is you just turn order and kill him before he does that and takes your party out.
So, as we see on TenShi's side, that's what happens if Blizzara happens, which is why we take the save.
Sawney having the same thing happen.
Yeah, they're all right here. So Double's strategy here is he's actually got a ton of HP on his warrior, max HP. So what he's going to do is he's going to heal up his warrior before this fight, and he may not, and he'll probably not save as a result, because his warrior should be able to tank a Blizzara with that much health.
Oh, it was his thief that was poisoned, not the knight. But TenShi has Lich down on the second try, so does Swanee. Yoshi got him first try.
Yeah, Yoshi has the slight lead, but man, everybody was really close there. And even Double's right in the fight right now, so this is a very, very close four-way match. And that could be a little bit dangerous on the thief, but lucky for Double, nothing happens there. So no shenanigans from Lich on Double's side, so Double gets through the fight just as well, and everybody's now stuck in a short cutscene here.
No, but for both Double and Yoshi, that was a chance to make up time in that they got Lich first try, so absolutely to their benefit there.
So in this short cutscene, welcome to the Earth Gift Shrine. If you're not familiar with it, it's the Earth-based bonus dungeon that opens up when you defeat the Lich in this version of the game. It's also in the GBA version of the game, which is where it was first added. We will not be actually seeing the dungeon, though, in it, as there's nothing of value in there for us in this category. You might see it in a different category called All Bosses, where you have to defeat each of the bonus bosses that was added in all four of the dungeons here. Plus, additionally, you have to do the PSP. In the PSP version, you also have to do the Labyrinth of Time bonus dungeon, which is only in the PSP version, and defeat the super boss Chronodia one time.
So as far as the story goes, we need to get on the ship, sail over to the Crescent Lake area, where we will then be able to pick up the canoe for our progression.
So yeah, as a reward for defeating Lich, we can pick up the canoe now from Crescent. We have to just get over there first, which requires us to go through a bit of a boat ride here and for a little bit of a walk back to our boat in the first place. Plus a big forest surrounding the lake here, so you'll notice in general, where possible, they're trying to avoid walking on forest tiles here, as each step they take raises the likelihood that they're going to get an encounter on the next step, and it raises at different rates and caps out at different rates depending on which type of tile you're walking on. The chances are greatest for getting an encounter on forest tiles over other types of tiles like these grass tiles or those water tiles that you'll see them canoe over shortly after. So in general, they're going to be trying to avoid walking on forest tiles where possible to minimize the risk of getting encounters. But ultimately, I mean, whether or not they get an encounter is completely up to the game. Yoshi first went in here, and he's going to stop into the armor shop first, and then the weapon shop to pick up a mithril gloves and a mithril axe. And he's going to turn this into 2 more pieces of equipment for his characters. Specifically, he's going to turn the axe into this armor called the Black Garb and put it on 3 of his characters. This adds even more agility than the Thief's armlets we've had on our characters at this point. And additionally, he's going to use the Mithril Gloves and turn that into a weapon called the Lust Dagger and put that on his 2 mage characters, most likely.
Once your equipment is set up, you walk on over to the sages, and they are kind enough to give us the canoe. And then we'll ignore what the game wants us to do, which is go to the volcano. We'll go to the ice cave instead, naturally.
Oops, didn't mean with double. So you might notice that they're changing the formation of the party. Specifically, they're flipping the position of the mages here. This is because they need to move. They want to put a Lust Dagger on each of their characters. But the only way to do that means they have to glitch the mithril weapon from their warrior, and as we set up our party at the beginning of the game, only one character is adjacent to the warrior. So after we put it on the one character, we change the party and put the other mage next to the warrior in the party order so that we can glitch it as well on that character. It's one of the properties of the equipment glitch. There's a lot of nuance to that people may not be aware of, and it's very, very difficult to explain. But luckily, there's a wonderful tutorial video by community member Chrono Kirby available on the FF1 speedrun.com page. Notably, if you're looking for FF1, there's two different pages. There's one for the NES version, and there's one for all the remakes. The default one for most people will be for the remakes. And if you look for like a list of PSP guides, you can find a set of notes by myself and Double about how to run this particular route. And you can also find tutorial videos about the equipment glitch that explains it much more in depth than I am. So they have their canoe here, and each of them is making their way to Ice Cave here. Once again, Yoshi looks to have a slight lead here, but it's not a very significant one at this point, and can easily flip in the Ice Cave, as this is one of the most dangerous and unpredictable dungeons coming up in the entire run.
Yeah, there's a lot of status elements that we have to worry about. There's some damage spells that we have to worry about. There's a lot more unrunnable encounters than we have, and then, well, there's Death Touch.
So, one thing you're probably going to see everybody do right at the very start is, because of the danger of this dungeon, everybody's going to probably take a safety save right off the bat, because they need the ability to recover in case things go horribly wrong here, which they can at any time. Everybody's in, and Sawny did not take a save. Now he's taking a save a couple steps in. A little bit dangerous to do it that way, but so long as he catches it before he gets into an encounter, it's okay. So we see Pisco Demons here on Double side, the same encounter as we've already seen in the Earth Cave and the Marsh Cave. And once again, they're unrunnable here, so if they see them, then they have to stop and take them out.
Okay, TenShi here has one of the most dangerous enemies you can run into. First of all, they've got the AoE trance, and second of all, they have Death Touch, so we just got both of those skills on display right here. Does the White Mage stay up? No! Stun Lock's on! Might even be faster to reset right now.
Now he's probably okay still.
Okay, recover.
Oh, maybe not.
Death Touch on the White Mage.
There he goes. Okay, so you got away from that. So it's a very dangerous encounter, particularly in an ambush formation here.
His save was so recent that I wondered if he would just go back to it, but I guess it also worked out in part for him to have the knight killed off.
Oh, we got another one. Oh my god.
And ambushed. Well,
another ambush.
Not ambushed, but went first.
This is two really unfortunate back-to-back ambushes for TenShi right here. And we got an Ice Geek's Winter Wolf on Yoshi's side. This is an unrunnable formation, so he has to stop and kill this group here. Double is also struggling with this undead group up top, which has paralyzed a couple of his guys. So they are runnable, but Double opts to take the safer play, which is to use Fire with his Black Mage and take them out.
The Winter Wolves can cast AoE Blizzard, which can just destroy the party if too many of them get off, so it's a very big cause for concern.
And TenShi seeing some Dark Wizards there, which are also extremely dangerous in an ambush formation. Luckily for him, they're not alone. There's another group of Mind Players.
Wow.
They're only particularly dangerous usually in an ambush, where characters typically are able to run from them. Here's Dark Wizards on Double side now. This is just extremely dangerous for everyone. Everybody's riding a very, very narrow line right now, where any ambush could set them back significantly.
Meanwhile, Swanee is on to the eye grind. Now, Yoshi joins him as well. So they're just interested in leveling up the mages here. This is to get the most of what they need for the end game. Not quite all of it, but hey, there's other encounters along the way. But they want to hit a certain benchmark here to be set up for the rest of the game.
So they specifically set up their party members at this point to try to have less than 70 HP when they enter the first fight with the Evil Eye. Because the Evil Eye has the ability to cast Thundara, which does about 70, and can sometimes do more than that to our party members. So we basically don't heal the melee characters, and then we heal up our mages to try to make sure that they are able to survive that Thundara. And then at that point, there's only 2 characters alive, and if there's only 2 characters alive, and then anytime they kill an enemy, they essentially get double the experience if all 4 characters are alive at the same time. So this shortens the grind significantly, and the other characters don't need the levels quite as much. But each time they take a fight on this particular tile, it's going to spawn an evil eye. So they're going to be trying to grind their characters to level either 17 or 18, depending on their particular choice. This typically takes something about 7 to 9 encounters, depending on how many random encounters they've already been forced to face up to this point. But their ultimate goal here is they want to get to level 17 or 18, and then eventually reach level 19 with their mages. Once they reach level 19 with the mages, they are able to purchase and use any of the spells they plan to be using for the rest of the run.
TenShi had a little trouble getting the thief down and then lost the black mage there. Might have to do an extra eye once he brings the black mage back up. Also, you have to really watch your step here, because if you're off by 1, you're going to fall back down to the next floor again, and that's really not what you want.
So yeah, once they've reached level 17 or 18 with their mages, they're gonna res their thief and get everybody back to full health, and then exit the ice cave. The only way to progress through certain floors is essentially step on cracked ice tiles and then fall down to a lower floor here. This narrow area where Evil Eye is a very narrow area in general. If they take the wrong step, they could fall down, and that would waste a ton of time, and they really don't want to do that without picking up the Levistone, because that would be a huge blunder.
They only have 1 extra step to the left there in front of that treasure chest. I think it's 2 to the right.
I think they can take 1 in any direction from that tile safely.
No, down, you would definitely fall down. You've only got it to left and right.
Yeah. Left, right, or you can use up once the Levistone's been picked up.
So Yoshi is going to be the first to take this Levistone down here to the desert, and that is going to give us the airship, which unlocks full travel in the world now.
Yeah, so they have the ability to reach any location at this point, and additionally the airship moves 4 times faster than walking. The boat moves twice as fast as walking if you were curious, and there's no risk of enemy encounters while you are on the airship, so it is the fastest and safest way to travel. The only downside is that some locations have very limited landing spaces for our airships, so we have to park kind of far away from our destination and walk to it sometimes. And as noted by Epimeth in the chat here, we're kind of passively watching the HP totals on the Black Mage and the Thief specifically, because we want to watch their totals, their max HP totals entering the Chaos fight at the very end of the run. If they happen to be low, they may have to spend a turn or two using a combat item to get up their max HP to be able to survive Chaos's attacks at the end. But it's always possible that they could gain enough HP over the course of their level ups that they don't need to use that item.
So ironically, after getting the airship, we go to the dungeon that probably is the furthest away from where you land the airship. The Citadel of Ordeals. It does not have a plot progression item, however there are other reasons we want to do this. We do have to worry about the Mind Flayers here. A couple other unrunnable encounters will make their presence felt here, but those are probably the most dangerous. Because Death Touch always scares me. It's ingrained in me from my earliest days of playing the game.
Well, we got a really nasty ambush here on Yoshi's side here, so this could be very dangerous if he's unlucky. These Medusas have a very long gaze attack animation if they use it, and it petrifies characters if they're unlucky. If all characters are petrified, that's essentially a wipe and a game over, and they'll have to either reload from a save, or if they're too far back, that could basically be a forfeit. Yoshi,
yeah, because I think most of them are still saved back first floor of the ice cave right now.
Yeah, it's typically, you don't see saves very deep in the ice cave. You might see them save after the grind section just in case, or possibly before the grind section if they were at very low health totals. But how much people choose to save is entirely up to them. There are recommended save points for everyone in the guide that most of these guys learn from, but it's ultimately up to them. And if they play too risky and die, they have nobody to blame but themselves, pretty much.
So we have this pillar maze here in the Citadel, but it's not much of a maze because the path doesn't change, so once you know it, you just go to the lower pillar and move on.
So Sawney getting the same unfortunate ambush over here, and this is a little dangerous now because he's got one of his 3 guys petrified. But he does get away from that encounter. This is
Yeah.
why everybody picked up gold needles earlier, though.
These nightmares that we see for Yoshi are actually a runnable encounter, but because of their stats, they're one of the harder enemies to run away from, so Yoshi just opting to go for the kill.
Yeah, additionally, depending on how much they grind it on the eyes, it may also behoove them to kill them for experience to be able to reach level 19 for their mages. Yoshi reaches the end of Citadel to pick up the Rat Tail here, which will allow him to class change. We need the class change to be able to cast, pick up and cast Teleport later for our Black Mage, specifically.
This Dragon Zombie is an unrunnable encounter. He's decent experience, so if you had to make something up, that's a decent place to do it. And basically, Yoshi, the full Citadel of Trials ahead of TenShi right now.
Yeah, Yoshi's open a lead here. We see a question in chat asking why is everyone's fighter and knight dead? It's because we set them up to die when they reached the Evil Eye, so that the mages could essentially grind experience repeatedly by fighting the Evil Eyes over and over again in the Ice Cave to gain enough levels so that they can reach level 19 by a certain point of the run, so they can get all the spells they will need for the rest of the run. And additionally, we raise up the Thief here so we can try to get a little bit more experience for the Thief once the grind is over. There's a chance here that by resurrecting the Thief, we can get haste on our Thief by the time we go spell shopping as well. It's not a guarantee in this route, but it also gives them a third character to be able to act with. Running around with two characters alive can be very, very dangerous.
Also, the fighter's HP growth is significant as we got a sandworm sighting for Yoshi. Gets away safely, but that's an enemy that can really hurt this early in the game.
Yeah, the sandworm has an earthquake ability. Really don't want to see him use that because that can essentially instantly wipe the party. And that would be extremely unfortunate and pretty much lead to a forfeit at this point in the run if they have not recently saved.
As soon as you leave, you head over to Bahamut, and he will give us the class change in exchange for the tail. Sounds like a fair trade.
So if you're just joining us here, this is a four-way layout, but we have two separate races going on here. We have TenShi versus YoshiKyon on the bottom. We have Dubldrop versus Sawneyrath on the top. We are in the bracket stage of our Total Chaos tournament, which is just the any percent PSP category of this game here. These are best of 3 matches. This is game 1 for both series here.
TenShi in a little trouble. 2 party members down to stone, so no surprise he opts for the Judgment Staff.
Yeah, that should be more than enough to kill them. He's alive. And he's got needles to recover from that, so that was a smart play. But he went into the fight without picking up the Rat's Tail. So I hope he realizes he did not pick up the Rat's Tail, because if he does and leaves Citadel, that's a huge blunder.
He did have that wipe of his Black Mage, so maybe he was routing in an extra Dragon Zombie fight as well.
We'll find out in a second. Oh, we did pick it up, okay.
Yeah, but he'll have to redo the fight.
Yeah, I'll have to redo the fight here, because anytime you step in front of this little throne here, that's an automatic forced fight with the Dragon Zombie. You can see 1 or 2 of them spawn in this spot. So another question, yeah, where the Judgment Staff is from, that's normally supposed to be acquired as a reward for beating the PSP exclusive super boss called Chronodia that is located at the Labyrinth of Time bonus dungeon in this version, but one of the properties of the equipment glitch is that we can actually obtain that pretty easily at the very beginning of the run without setting foot anywhere near the Labyrinth of Time.
Ooh, NPC RNG for Yoshi. He walked right into the path, wisely ducked into the shop to reset, and now he's going to be able to get to the ferry. Very heads-up recovery there.
Yeah, it's a very rare occurrence when an NPC blocks you in that specific spot in Gaia, but that is basically the best way to handle that situation if it happens. So the Judgment Staff can be used as a weapon. It can also be used as an item in combat to cast Flare, the level 8 black magic spell. So they've had access to that since about 2 minutes into the run, and it's the de facto way to handle large groups of enemies that are unrunnable here. But many of these guys have also picked up some spells along the way to give them additional options that take less time to cast, such as Fyra or Thundara. Or they'll be cast. Some of them will be picking up Lazara as well coming up. So once they'll have access to that, they'll have essentially access to the two tier 2 spells that can hit everyone in a party in an enemy formation, and the animations for those are significantly shorter than casting Flare in this version.
So a lot going on for these runners right now. On the top side, we're seeing the fairy saved. She hands over the Oxyale, which is going to allow us access to the Sea Shrine. Yoshi is hanging around in the volcano, not worried about much here, but because you're walking on all these lava tiles, you're losing HP every time you do. Your biggest concern is about getting into an encounter while your HP is too low, so they'll probably do some safety heals one time, I think.
So double entering Mount Gulg here. Looks like TenShi's currently lagging behind the other players. Double and Sawny are both in Mount Gulg here. Yoshi's at the very end of Mount Gulg here, about to head into the Marilith fight. He'll be the first one to do so.
That's an unrunnable encounter, 10.
Oh, that one is an unrunnable encounter here on TenShi's side. And he does not have
rare to
Lazara
see
yet.
in the overworld, so that's why I think it threw him off. You don't see it much in the overworld. It does show up here in the volcano where Yoshi is.
This is definitely one area where it can show up, is this little section here where you're visiting the desert caravan. It's really unfortunate. The other area you can see it, you can also see it just outside Onrak. It's a little bit rarer there, though, I think.
Marilith down for Yoshi. That's going to be the first of our runners to do that at the 56-minute mark, right as Swanee is about to get into the fight.
Yeah, so Asani holding a slight lead over Double right now. Double is catching up quickly, though, and is not far behind. Yoshi has opened probably at least a good minute or two lead over TenShi at this moment. If TenShi were to lose this would be his first loss in the entire tournament. He's currently 10-0 through group and bracket play so far. And TenShi is, I think, the only remaining undefeated player at this point. But as we mentioned here, this is two separate races, one between TenShi and Yoshi, and the other one between Double and Sawny, and these are best of 3 series. This is game 1 for both series. So they will each have to win 2 series, but they're only playing game 1 tonight of each of their series. All right, now Sawny has a slight lead here, and Yoshi has a little bit more sizable lead over TenShi in the races. Both of them technically the lower seeds of these races. Although the seeds don't mean much after a certain point with runners' PBs. Another of the reasons we call this the Total Chaos Tournament, because anything can happen.
So now we want a few spells. Yoshi working on that. Once you class change, your Knight and Ninja become capable of learning spells. Warp is going to save us, Warp Teleport going to save us a significant amount of time from here out. It'll let you go back 1 floor prior from where you are right now, which includes going out of a dungeon onto the overworld.
So yeah, they essentially set up their party to reach level 19 by this point of the run, so that they can purchase and use all the spells they need at this point in the run, and they will purchase them all right now. So they're buying Healara for the White Mage, and we'll use that for healing, especially and primarily for the final fight, but also to just help set up their party quickly in the menu. They'll buy Teleport for the Black Mage, as that saves significant time backtracking. And then finally, they pick up Haste for the Black Mage. This will be used primarily for the final boss fights, specifically Chaos especially.
So not a commentator's curse, but a chatter's curse for TenShi. As chat said, that's a trivial dungeon. TenShi got ambushed and was very low HP against the fire giant. Survived, moving on to the Marilith fight as Yoshi enters the Sea Shrine. We need 2 things out of here. We have to beat the Fiend, but we also need an item that is on the other side of the dungeon, where the mermaids are.
So yeah, Sawny is reaching the entrance here. We had to pick up the Oxy Ale earlier. We had to pick up a bottle fairy in the Desert Caravan, take that to Gaia, and open it so that we could get the Oxy Ale key item from the ferry at the very back of the town. Once we have that, we can breathe underwater, which is how we get into the sunken shrine here. So as Trenton said, we have to go get the Rosetta Stone here in one direction, and then once we have that, we have to backtrack in the other direction to take on Kraken, who will be the third of the four fiends we're confronting here. TenShi, meanwhile, has finished up Marilith.
The Sahagins, one of a couple unrunnable formations that live in this sea shrine. There is also some equipment pickup that will do.
Yeah, so they'll be detouring at one point to pick up a light axe. There's two locations they can actually pick it up, either on the 4th floor on the way back from picking up the Rosetta Stone, or on the floor, on the 2nd floor, just before reaching Kraken's floor. In either case, it's the same item. It's honestly a runner choice which one they pick it up from, but they need it either. They both need it because they need to glitch it into a piece of armor known as the Survival Vest. Another one of the bonus items that was added originally, I think, in the GBA versions, or possibly as the PSP version.
A question in chat if the Black Belt and Red Mage are viable in this run. This is a pretty optimized party. Everybody's here to do something specific. Although in the Knight's case, that's primarily to equip a piece of equipment. But this is pretty optimized to do what it's doing.
I mean, you can use those characters. We tend to pick up the characters that we are using for very specific reasons, mostly because of the equipment glitch and its properties, or because we need the healing for Chaos with the White Mage, or backtracking with Teleport with the Black Mage. And with the equipment, we're able to glitch onto our characters. The Thief is actually the strongest melee character we have. But the Warrior is the one who facilitates many of the glitches. That's the general reason you see everyone using the same party and the same setup. The glitch does work with the other characters, but it doesn't work with this specific route as efficiently as this particular party formation does. Yeah, as far as I know, this is the optimal party for this, and this party for this particular category has not changed in several years. So
no, feel free to try and route it and find a way to break it with one of the other formations and take the record. That's always a welcome thing. That's just where we are right now.
In the all bosses route of this particular version of the game, you will often see a warrior, 2 ninjas, and a white mage. And the advantage of that is you get more melee damage out of having 2 ninjas, but you lose the ability to backtrack with the black mage. But you can also you also gain more levels in that version, and you can pick up exit as a substitute instead.
Swanee had the ghost formation, which is one of the ones you really need to respect because of their ability to do crit damage. The good news is they only hit one time, but if they had multiple hits with their ability to do crits, that would be really scary.
So here we see on Double side, Double just actually got into an encounter with water elementals, also unrunnable here. So there's 3 different formations that we've already seen, and we've seen them all between all 4 runners here. But Double's turning this light axe now into the survival vest and putting it on his characters. And additionally, he's taking the healing staff that he picked up in Citadel and turning it into another piece of equipment called the Lordly Robes. So this is another bonus item, which adds a bunch of staffs that was part of the bonus content added in these versions of the game. So the advantage of putting the survival vest on is 15 points of agility for each piece that you have on your characters, and Lordly Robes adds 20 points of intelligence. So by putting on a ton of agility on our characters have a greater chance to run away, and they will more likely take their turns in the turn order earlier than the enemies. And the advantage of the intelligence is it raises the damage that our magic spells or combat use items do. We've specifically set up our party in this case to be a nice mix of agility and intelligence gear for the Black Mage, so the Black Mage can take out these unrunnable groups with spells such as Thundara, Fyra, or Blizzara. And additionally, we've been stacking intelligence on the White Mage, because the White Mage will need that for the final fight.
And P.S., these waters actually vulnerable to ice, not lightning, because reasons. Question in chat, well, I'll just summarize the answer. The equipment glitch enables them to put the equipment regardless of slot. So yes, you're able to equip multiple of the same thing into the different slots, and they work correctly.
And that also ignores any class restrictions. So even though the Barbarian Sword is normally only equipable by the Warrior in this particular version, the Warrior is able to glitch it onto other characters. And some of these things like the Survival Vest and the Lily Robes would normally only be equipable on one or two of these characters, and it can instead be glitched onto any one of the characters so long as the item that they're glitching it from is equipable by one of the characters in their party. They are able to glitch it onto an adjacent character.
About 20 seconds after getting into the fight, Yoshi clears off the Kraken, and TenShi continues to work their way down there. Sawneyrath's going to get into the fight with the most dapper of the fiends.
So we have Rayanus in chat. Also mentioning an important point of the glitch that many people may not be aware of. For the most part, we are ignoring putting gear on the shield slot of our characters, as if we put a piece of equipment on there and there's no animation associated with it and a character attempts to block and in combat, that can essentially hard lock the game. So unless we very specifically know which pieces of gear to put on there, we will not put anything on the shield slot, as that can risk hard locking. But after a certain point, we know certain pieces of equipment are perfectly safe to equip on that. For whatever reason, they actually have animations, such as a ribbon that we'll be seeing later calls up a sword animation for whatever reason. Doesn't have to make sense. So if you see them like block an attack and you see like a random sword swing overhead, I mean, don't be alarmed. It's just kind of a property of the equipment glitch.
Yoshi is now into the waterfall. This is going to accomplish a couple things for us. One, we need the teleportation cube from the robot here.
Sawny getting an unrunnable Ice Gigas on the outside of the waterfall here. So right now we have Yoshi and Sawny leading their respective races here. Although the gap between Double and Sawny is shorter than the gap between Yoshi and TenShi at the moment.
No, that's just a couple of counters on the top race. This could swing back at any time, which means both runners are feeling the pressure as they've got to keep everything close.
Yeah, I mean, neither lead is safe at the moment. They can still easily swing. So Yoshi's working his way here through the waterfall cave. Sawny has just begun as well. They got to watch out for the bats here. The bats can get in the way, which is a little bit annoying. Yoshi reaches the final room here, so he has to talk to the robot to get the warp cube. One of the key items he needs to be able to reach Tiamat. And he also picks up a ribbon from the chest here. So we need the ribbon because the ribbon reduces damage from elemental spells, and additionally provides us with protection against most status effects. It's a very key item we're going to need for later boss fights, and to ensure that our characters are essentially free to get into and out of encounters without any real danger to our party. But notably, he's going to be taking one copy of that ribbon and glitching another item called the Gigantax, and then using the Gigantax that we glitched there to reverse glitch it into multiple copies of the ribbon. So while there's normally 3 ribbons available in the original game, and a 4th ribbon also available in this version in the bonus dungeons, we only need to pick up one of them, and we can use that to glitch multiple copies of the ribbon.
And it's a speed run, so every step saved counts.
Ooh, Double getting the unrunnable green dragon here in Waterfall. It's a little unlucky for him, slows him down a little bit.
That is really rare. That's as rare as finding... I may be off on this, but I'm pretty sure it's at least as rare as seeing Warmech, if not rarer. And then that you got 2 of them instead of 1 is more rare on top of that.
I'm not even sure what the rarest one is. Probably the most likely the rarest one in this entire game is probably the Iron Golem. But lucky for us, YoshiKyon has seen Iron Golems 3 different times in this tournament already, which is quite an accomplishment. Another unrunnable green dragon for Double here. Jeez.
Oh, gee. Yeah. So the game handles it by groups, and the Group 8, which is where Iron Golems live, are the rarest. Sometimes you see those, though, and you don't realize it because they're just common enemies, but we're used to a few of these just being so rare that we know when we see them that it's one of those of the rarest category.
Yeah, so in general, most of these runners know which encounters are and are not runnable. The game itself provides no actual, feedback regarding whether or not you were able to run from something, other than if you just try to run from something, you will fail each time that you try. If you try to run from something that is unrunnable. So this particular group of Minotaur zombies and trolls, for example, on Yoshi's screen, is an unrunnable formation, so if he was to try to run away from them, his characters would be unsuccessful each time, but he would otherwise receive no feedback from that.
Yeah, the one that can be really tricky is when you see the Cerebrus without the Wizard Ogre. It's just on its own, but it is that formation, so it's unrunnable.
Yeah, that's probably the most confusing encounter group in the game in terms of determining whether or not it is runnable.
So basically, just kill it to be safe.
Certain locations you're okay to run away if you see certain types, but in other locations it can be different. But it's the only real group that behaves like that, which is why it's the most confusing for runners. So, after defeating Tiamat here, the first objective is to take the Rosetta Stone to Melmond, talk to this NPC in the back of the town called Dr. Un, and get it translated. And once they have that, they can travel over to Lufenia and converse with the NPCs, and that allows one of them to reward us with the chime. But if we get all the way to this point and we haven't translated the Rosetta Stone, that's a huge time loss. So runners will hopefully avoid doing that, because that would be a pretty big blunder, unfortunately, that would be very difficult to recover from.
Having the ribbons now reduces the risk of elemental magic like what we're seeing on Sawney's screen right now. There's still the concern in this large pack, though, that if you're taking enough of these, it still will chip away all your HP. So this is going very badly right now, and I hope Swanee's got a recent save. More than that, I hope he doesn't need it.
Sawney should be okay, mostly because it takes a lot of those ice storms from the wolves to take us down. But they do have to watch their HP totals at certain points just to make sure that they're not leaving themselves in dangerous territory.
Yeah, the biggest concern there would be just the running failed the next turn, and you could be in a really bad situation.
So Yoshi
gets away, he gets his translated stone, and we start to see the Mirage Tower.
So yeah, here in Mirage Tower, we see Yoshi's the first one in there. Double getting blocked by the NPCs back in Lufenia here, just slowing him down a little bit. But there's 3 floors here in the Mirage Tower. We don't need anything other than to head to the very top floor and confront the blue dragon that's blocking our path. But in particular, the second floor is subject to a lot of random encounters. Not particularly dangerous to us, but they can waste just a lot of time here.
There was your ribbon block you mentioned.
So this is a really unfortunate ambush on Yoshi's side, because there's 8 enemies, so each of them gets a chance to attack. And if those Pyralisks use a gaze move, that could waste a lot of time as well. Double getting the unrunnable Minotaur zombie and troll. There's also a separate formation which can only be Minotaur zombies, but if he sees either one of those, he has to essentially stop and kill them. TenShi also getting blocked by the NPC here, which is really hampering his ability to catch up to Yoshi at this point. Sawney about to enter the Mirage Tower here. Yoshi's approaching the end of the tower. He's on the 3rd floor. As soon as he steps into this room, there's a forced fight with a blue dragon. He can cast Thunderbolt and do quite a bit of damage to us, but usually we outspeed it and can just kill it in one blow with our Barbarian Sword. And then we have the Warp Cube from earlier that allows us to teleport up to the Flying Fortress here. So we needed the Chime to get into the Mirage Tower, we needed the Warp Cube to get the teleport up to the Flying Fortress, and in order to get the Chime in the first place, we needed the Rosetta Stone. So we need all 3 of those items to essentially be able to reach Tiamat.
Then it's a pretty quick jaunt through this Sky Castle.
Yeah, again, they don't need any items here. Usually, you would think the most prominent item they would probably need is a ribbon here, but due to the properties of the equipment collection, they already have multiple copies of the ribbon, and they can do that with just the 1 copy they picked up earlier. So they don't have to detour for anything. They can literally just go straight to Tiamat.
And in a different category, if this were glitchless, they would want the Adamant to pick up the Excalibur. But as I said, different category.
Yeah, the power of the Barbarian Sword easily outstrips the Excalibur, so it is not necessary for us to pick up in this run. Double getting a Chimera ambush here, which with 2 Blazes is... Blaze is a very long animation, especially from Chimeras, so that's very unfortunate time loss for him.
The teleporter maze for Yoshi, not much of a maze. You just have to go 2 up or down and 2 left or right. Just pick any combination of that you want and you'll get there.
Alright, Yoshi onto the final floor of this, where we can possibly see a Warmech. Has not shown up yet today.
The Bridge of Destiny, because 1 Warmech, 2, well, this formation, and 3, of course, it's where Tiamat is, so it's your last orb to be restored.
I mean, lucky for you guys, we've got 4 different racers here who all have the chance of getting Warmech to show up, so our chances are never going to get better than they are right now. But Yoshi does not see one before he reaches Tiamat here, so he still has a chance to see one afterwards. In the meantime, he's facing Tiamat here. Tiamat only has 2400 HP. Typically, we'll take 3 or 4 attacks from our melee characters. Optionally, he can also opt to haste one of them and try to see if he can one-round the fight.
Is TenShi getting past the blue dragon? Not. I think TenShi has actually made up some time here. Still the Sky Castle behind, but a little bit closer, I think, than we saw before.
And she's probably sitting about 1.5 to 2 minutes behind Yoshi right now, and that can change quite a bit with encounters. Sawney here, on the other hand, getting a terrible encounter.
Honestly, probably the worst in the dungeon, even worse than Warmech, because Warmech we can kill, but these guys kill us.
Now, he should be able to run away from this.
Got the White Mage alive. I think he's going to Judgment Staff because of only 1 person.
Okay. I mean, it's up to him. They don't tend to be too difficult to run from, but yeah, if he doesn't want to risk it, he can definitely use the Judgment Staff to guarantee they die. He probably doesn't know if they're vulnerable to any of the other spells, which is why he's using the Judgment Staff rather than the other one, which may have a longer animation. Yoshi getting a last step encounter, very similar to the one that Sawney just saw, but luckily for him, it's not an ambush. But now Sawney's getting another one up here.
Just the one is not nearly as scary, but it's not just the death touch, but it's the stun lock that can just shut you down for minutes at a time if you're getting that bad of an RNG pattern.
Double seeing the rare Vampire Lord Nullblaze. If you run this enough, another ambush for Sawney. Oh my god, this is terrible. This is essentially flipping this race right now in Double's favor up top. Because that's 3 terrible fights for Sawney that have just been slowing him down.
This bridge among the highest encounter rates of the game.
So Sawney seeing yet another pack of them. Luckily for him, it's not an ambush here. But that essentially has changed the lead on the upper race here. Double is now currently in the lead. And TenShi is also onto the bridge now. Yoshi, meanwhile, has made his way to the start of the Chaos Shrine. Now that he's defeated Tiamat, all 4 of the fiends have been defeated, and we can start the final dungeon here.
2 encounters we're particularly concerned of in the early floors, and they are dragons, be they the white dragons casting Blizzard or the green dragons casting Poison.
Here's some white dragons on Yoshi's side. So they are runnable, these white dragons. The green dragons are not runnable if he sees them on the 3rd floor here. Yoshi's having a pretty good run on this 3rd floor so far with no encounters. Makes it all the way to Death Eye without a single encounter there, but he did get the white dragons before, and they did do an Ice Storm, which lowered his health a little bit. So probably have to heal up at some point just to make sure he's not in danger, or he's minimizing his risk against future white dragons, because he's going to have to start backtracking.
It's the same encounter table again on this next floor he's going to go through.
Alright, so here we go. Everybody's got one last chance for Warmech here on this short walkout from Tiamat. Double does not get it, so Sawney will be up next to try to get an encounter.
What is your preferred Warmech strat? Do you like to kill them? Do you like to run away?
Running away is always going to be faster, so it's always going to be preferred, but they are worth a ton of experience. So if you do happen to get them in a setting where you can kill them like a preemptive, then that is totally up to them. But it's so rare that I don't know if anybody really has a preferred strategy. No, and everybody's out, so no Warmechs today. I'm sorry, guys. You can blame the runners.
These purple worms are an unrunnable encounter for Yoshi, but they go down very easily to the Barbarian Sword.
So we have a very, very close race up top between Double and Sawney, and Yoshi's opened up a bit of a lead on TenShi that's going to be very difficult to recover from this point on. So if nothing changes, unless Yoshi gets a significant bombardment of enemies and TenShi does not at the same time, it's likely Yoshi's going to be able to cruise to the victory at this point. And
those Earth Elementals are unrunnable, more unrunnable formations in Chaos Shrine than anywhere else.
Yeah, there are many, many unrunnable formations. And again, the runners kind of have to know that to deal with it. So Yoshi's almost reached the first refight with the Lich. He's just got to get to the end of this corridor here. If TenShi were to lose here, this would be his first loss in the entire tournament right now, and put him at risk of elimination in the very next game. But there won't be any more games between these guys tonight. You guys will have to stay tuned to Speed Gaming channels for future games. As a reminder, these are best of 3 series. There are 2 separate races going on here. There's Dubldrop versus Sawney up top, and TenShi versus Yoshi at the bottom. This is game 1 of each respective series.
The safety save for Yoshi before this Lich fight. You gotta show Lich some respect. Good RNG, only getting the physical attack, and he should take out Lich here.
Okay, so yeah, Lich has 2800 HP in that fight, and it has to be very, very careful, as Lich can cast Flare, the same as we've been using the entire game. And additionally, Yoshi's HP totals were a little bit low there, so he would have been subject to possibly 2 or more characters dying on if he had used Flare. Double getting Dragon Zombies here. Double still holding on to a slight lead against Sawney right now. TenShi is a number of floors behind Yoshi right now. So unless he starts getting some help... Ooh, we get an ambush Red Dragon on Yoshi's side.
Simultaneous unrunnables on the top side.
That's a very rare encounter to see. And somewhat dangerous on Yoshi's side. So he really needs to kill this group.
Going for the heal in battle strats. You don't see that a ton. Is he going to get off in time? Probably not for the night. Ninja does survive by just 6 HP.
He should be okay as long as he gets his turn off. I'm pretty sure the Red Dragons are actually runnable here, but it's an extremely unfortunate one. And it's also extremely rare, so I mean, it's not like most runners would know necessarily how to handle that if they see it.
There's also the safety strat, and you don't want Blaze putting you back before Lich. You've got the lead here. The safety play was to go ahead and kill him.
It's a safety play, but by taking the safety play, you are opening up the door for TenShi to catch up. So that is, honestly, that is his prerogative to make at this point. With a lead, you can afford to take more risks.
Aerolith 2 goes down for Yoshi.
TenShi getting an ambush White Dragon over here is very unfortunate for him, because that can waste a lot of time and will probably kill off his Black Mage right now. And he really needs to run away from this.
And he's out.
Yoshi makes it onto the 3rd floor, so now he's on the 3rd of the 4 refight floors. This is Kraken's floor, so you're going to see many of the sea enemies that he saw earlier on will make a reappearance here. The only enemy he really doesn't want to see here are water elementals, as they are unrunnable here on this floor. Double into the Lich fight here. And his HP totals are a little dangerous here. This could be 2 or 3 dead on Double side. I don't know if he's saved or not. Oh, he does survive. Nice.
Should be okay.
Oh, it's 340. I thought that said 318, not 348. So
okay, he got it there, even with just the 1 melee, but he got the flare off from Judgment Staff.
Double is mere seconds ahead of Sawney, but honestly, Double's going to have to stop and heal here, and Sawney's going to take the lead. So once again, this lead flips. But this
And Yoshi is about to head on to the sky floor.
So this is the shortest floor. You can head immediately to the TMI fight right here. So TenShi's running out of time to catch up. Meanwhile, Double and Sawney are so close that like a single encounter could flip the lead between the two of them. And once again, now it looks like it has flipped again. Double is currently in the lead. And this is an ambush on Sawney's side that's going to slow him down.
These lava worms, not a particularly scary encounter, but they're just wasting our time.
Sawney getting a little confused after that. I think he's heading in the wrong direction accidentally. So, Double first to defeat Merilith in the upper race going on. Yoshi, meanwhile, has just taken down Tiamat and is half a floor away from getting onto the final floor with Chaos.
Usually get another encounter before you get off the floor.
Now he does get
there
one.
It is. Stone golems. There was the chance for the iron golems, but that's the wrong kind.
Okay, Yoshi makes it to the final floor here. There's no more random encounters on his side, so he's just got to set up here for his final fight with Chaos here. Notably, he wants to make sure he's putting the Barbarian Sword on his Black Mage, as well as a ribbon, so that he does, because the Black Mage is going to be hasting characters and then attacking.
Ooh, TenShi did not fare well against Lich, and will have to do it over. It was down to just the White Mage, and the White Mage really doesn't have the ability to kill Lich there.
That's unfortunate for him. His HP totals are a little bit low on his Warrior. That's another flare. That might be another wipe.
Can depend a little bit on how it rolls within the RNG. It's got a healthy range, but no. That's very unfortunate.
Now, his max HP on his Warrior is very low at that point. Ideally, you want it in like the 350 range at this point in the run, and it's under 300, which is about... Well, there's another flare. Boy, TenShi's getting really, really unlucky on this fight.
I'm not an expert on the enemy AIs, but I think it's a 50% chance that Lich does a spell, and if he does the spell, Flare is going to be the one he does first. So this is basically coin flip survival.
There it goes. He got it this time. So in the meantime, we've got Yoshi on the Chaos fight here. So Yoshi set up his party. In particular, he set up his party so that the White Mage has a ton of intelligence gear on it and no agility gear, so that she will reliably act at the end of combat, and she will be on healing duty every round with Heal Aura. The Black Mage will be healing the Ninja, the Warrior, and himself in sequence, and then attacking, and everybody else will be attacking. And additionally, in the opening round, since the max HP totals of the Thief and Black Mage were low, we picked up an item back in the Desert Caravan area earlier called a Giant's Tonic from a shop that opens up after you've bought the Bottled Fairy there in this version. And when you use the item, the Giant's Tonic in combat, it raises your character's max HP by 200, which is a safety strat for this fight if your characters don't get enough HP over the course of their level ups. Another brutal pattern on TenShi's side here.
This is so close on the top side that it could honestly come down to what Chaos decides to do in terms of physical attack versus using a spell.
Yeah, Double's going to have...
Dubldrop is the fight ahead, though.
Double's the first one onto the floor, but he's going to have about a 20-second lead, at least, entering the Chaos fight. So Double's taking a safety save.
Yeah, you don't want to have to go all the way back to Lich if things go wrong here.
Yoshi should be in pretty good shape at this point. TenShi's just not getting the luck he needs to be able to catch up at this point. So unfortunately for TenShi, that's probably going to be over, and Yoshi is well set up to handle the remainder of this fight. This first round of the fight is going to be the most crucial, especially for Double and Sawney up here. They got to watch the totals of their Thief and Black Mage entering this fight, because if they're too low, they could be at risk of dying on the opening round, and if they do, that's going to lengthen the fight.
And a GG for Yoshi. That is going to be a 129-11. Well done.
So Yoshi wins the bottom race down there. So that will be the first loss for TenShi in the tournament. In the meantime, we're going to focus on the upper fight here. So Double entered this fight with a slight lead here, and his character is well set up. And additionally, he looks like he tonicked up his white mage just to protect against her low HP total. He probably realized he had enough time to do so, so he opted to do that. And she finishes off Kraken here. Gonna finish out the run.
Yeah, it's still on a decent pace to finish this out. Generally speaking, you start a race, you want to finish it. Slow coming out, does it hit? So the game has 3 states for speed. It has normal, slow, and hasted. If you do slow on a character who's hasted, it takes them back to neutral, but that's not going to be enough damage output. So Double's going to reapply the haste to counteract that, as I believe Yoshi joins us now. GG.
Hold on 1 second here. We got Dubldrop is 1 spell away from getting Curage here right now, and that could really hurt him. That's the next spell on Chaos's list. So Chaos can do 1 of 3 things. Oh, he does Curage. That's going to lengthen this fight. That might be enough to swing this for Sawney. We're going to have to see. That's very unfortunate for Double. He's just going to have to power through
AI
here.
can really make a difference in a close race. He also lost that turn of attacking because he had to reapply the haste instead of attacking with the Black Mage.
And he also put an extra tonic on somebody else, so he also lost a turn for somebody else. So he's behind here. Sawney might be able to sneak this out. Double's also going to watch the MP on his mage right now, on his white mage specifically.
And GG Swanee pulled it out on the Chaos fight.
Dude. Double is so mad. But I would be too if Curage was the difference. Oh my god. There's nothing you can do about that. That's totally up to the AI patterns for Chaos. That's really, really unfortunate on Double's end. But on the other hand, Sawney was able to capitalize.
Oh. Hang on a second. I'm guessing you got my audio going still. Hi. Okay.
Congratulations, Sawney and Yoshi, on your respective wins.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So that was a strong race from you, Yoshi, and quite the RNG finish on Sawney's end.
I felt like my early game was really bad. My early menus were terrible. I'm normally I pride myself on my movement in this. That's the thing I think I'm best at, and it was just all over the place. And so I didn't safety save in Earth Cave where I normally do. I normally take 1 or 2 safety saves on the way to Lich, and I just didn't take any. And then had the Ice Cavern of a lifetime and never looked back.
So Double finishes a third of the 4th racers. He's the 2nd place finisher in the upper race here, and TenShi's wrapping up his Chaos fight here. Looks like he's on round 2. This typically takes 6 or 7 rounds here. So we'll have Double join us shortly, I'm sure, to talk about what just happened there.
Sonny, have to ask, were you watching the game screen at all to see how tight that was, or were you just focused in on your fight going into Chaos?
So while I was traversing Earth Cave, I actually pulled up the stream on my phone and was looking over at it from time to time to see how close Double and I were, because I know I had an atrocious early game. And that was really close throughout the entire race, and I feel really bad that he got Curage because he should have taken this one. But RNG's going to do what RNG does, and oh my gosh.
And RNG was certainly saying no to you with all those Clay Golem mind flayers.
Stone or with 2 mud golems. Oh, I saw that and my heart sank because I was like, I have somewhat of a lead, and oh, ambush. Okay, there it goes.
Yeah, I think my one moment for that was in Citadel. I had a 5 Medusa ambush, and I was just like, please no, not now. Anything but this.
TenShi should be almost finished here. He's seeing Earthquake, which means he's seen all of Blaze, Tsunami, and Cyclone, which is about as bad as it gets. Seeing all those have very long animations and do a ton of damage to our party.
How many melee attacks did I get from Chaos in a row?
I can't say I was counting.
I only saw Slowra and Blizzaga from Chaos, and that was it.
I'm not sure what's going on TenShi's end right now.
I was just wondering if we had some stream lag. Oh, there it is! It just needed the one hit.
He seemed to have paused there unnecessarily, or maybe he got distracted by something, which can happen.
Yeah, IRL has a way of doing things.
So TenShi will be joining us shortly. Hopefully Double will too. We'll see. GG to TenShi. Welcome in. Sorry that didn't end probably the way you wanted it to, but...
Sorry, I was not Miko. GG guys. Let's race.
GG.
So I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you hate Lich right now?
Like, I died for, I think, 4 times to Lich, so I like him.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate because like the max HP on your warrior was especially low on that fight, so there really wasn't anything you could do about that, and he just opted to do flare after flare after flare.
Yeah, after each flare, I was just hoping low roll, but never, like never. So, yeah. The game well.
It's kind of crazy for me. I feel like of the 3 matches I've had in this like bracket now, 2 of them have been less about me playing optimally and more about me just having a consistent run while my opponent gets really unlucky.
Consistency counts.
I'm gonna like touch wood here and say, other than Lich, I've not had a single death in this tournament yet. So I'll take it.
But I don't know. I mean, are you truly the winner today? There were no Iron Golem.
I'm so disappointed. I did get a Red Dragon ambush though.
Yeah, he did get a Red Dragon ambush.
Yes, there
which
was
is-
that. Actually, we were curious about that. What was your thought process on running versus fighting?
I'd already lost the Black Mage, so the fight was like, I was hesitant, but at the same time I was like, I'd been failing to run all the way through this run, so I wasn't sure if like my speed was really low or something. Like just every single fight I was like failing to run from at least once or twice. So I was just like, I know I can kill 2 of them on the first round pretty comfortably. I'm just gonna go for that, take it safe, and maybe the extra HP is enough to not need to tonic up the Black Mage or something, or the Ninja, sorry. But no. On that note, I'm a little mad that my Black Mage's HP was incredible in the early game, and then I think gained 5 total between Ice Cavern and Chaos Shrine.
It's not very much.
So nobody had a Warmech today, but plenty more opportunities for that to happen in your upcoming game. So with this, Sawney takes a 1-0 lead in that series against Double. Yoshi takes a 1-0 series in that lead against TenShi. And hopefully these guys can find times for when they're going to do their second games. I think Double and Sawney are playing tomorrow.
Yes, we are playing tomorrow. Though, a heads up for anybody on the Restream team, I might be running a little late due to work. So I will try to get home as soon as I can.
I think our current plan is early next week.
Well, I wish you guys better luck than myself, because I got 2-0'd out earlier today. So even though I'm out, we still have 7 people alive, and 4 of them were in this race here. So I'm rooting for one of you guys because I don't want to see Krill win this thing 3 times in a row. He's going to be a tough opponent. So the rest of this round will be best of 3s, and then we're going to be shifting to best of 5 matches for the semifinals and the finals round. So I hope you guys will stay tuned for future matches on the Speed Gaming channels. But unless anybody else has any final thoughts here, I don't think we can find Double here. Doesn't seem interested in talking today, but I can understand after that finish.
Yeah, not surprised.
Devil's thoughts are Kuraga on Chaos. That's his thought.
Yeah, Cure 4 on Chaos was just rude for him.
Yeah, that typically seeing that adds a minute to a minute and a half in that fight, and that was enough to swing it in Sawney's favor. So I guess we're going to start saying our goodbyes here, and hope you guys will tune in for the future races coming up later this week or early next week on Speed Gaming. We'll have more matches coming in this tournament. But with that, I think we'll say goodnight. So thanks everyone and for watching, and thanks Speed Gaming for hosting us, and thanks everybody else for racing.
Good night, everybody.